Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, Anglo-Saxon for, well, it could mean haven in Anglo-Saxon. That's what I mean to say. Okay, we're going to start without any ado. We hope that you are all safe and well and happy in these very heavy times we're living in now. Sanatana Goswami glorified the Srimad Bhagavatam in his Sri Krishna Leela Stava, a book he wrote not long after he composed, brought the scripture back into the external world, Bhagavatamrita. And not long after he was instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 2 straight months. So this Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram is the 107th out of 108th obeisance that Sanatana Goswami planned to offer to the Vrindavan Leela of Krishna. And it's text 412 through 416, just in case you want to look it up in the book of Sri Krishna Leela Stava. It's the most beautiful glorification of the Bhagavatam that I've read. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu Kalidwandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who were supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madgudo Man Mahadana Man Nistadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin adini chochata kada hanamunchagada chenmam premna rit kantayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Krishna has finished his instructions to Uddhava. Here in the 29th chapter, entitled Bhakti-yoga, the culmination of the Uddhava Gita. And Uddhava was overwhelmed. He couldn't speak. His eyes were flooding with tears. but he wanted to speak. So now we're going to hear from verse 36 Uddhava's response to the ending of the instructions to him, because he knew this meant that Krishna was going to leave. Text 36. Steadying his mind, which had become overwhelmed with love, Uddhava felt extremely grateful to Lord Krishna, the greatest hero of the Yadu dynasty. My dear King Parikshit, Uddhava bowed down to touch the Lord's lotus feet with his head, and then spoke with folded hands. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the fear of separation from Lord Krishna was continually entering the mind of Sri Uddhava, and thus he tried to maintain his enthusiasm by remembering the Lord's great kindness upon him. He steadied his mind with feelings of gratitude toward the Lord. Text 37. Sri Uddhava said, O unborn, primeval Lord, although I had fallen into the great darkness of illusion, my ignorance has now been dispelled by your merciful association. Indeed, how can cold, darkness, and fear exert their power over one who has approached the brilliant sun? Purport. Although Sri Uddhava feared separation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, he now understands that in a fundamental sense, the Lord is everything. Krishna consciousness can never be threatened or diminished for one who has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Text 38. In return for my insignificant surrender, you have mercifully bestowed upon me, your servant, the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Therefore, what devotee of yours who has any gratitude could ever give up your lotus feet and take shelter of another master? Text 39. The firmly binding rope of my affection for the families of the Dasharas, Vrishnis, Andakas, and Sattvatas, a rope you originally cast over me by your illusory energy for the purpose of developing your creation, is now cut off by the weapon of transcendental knowledge of the Self. Purport. Although the members of the families mentioned in this verse are eternal associates of Lord Krishna, and thus proper objects of affection, Sri Uddhava had regarded them as his personal relatives, rather than simply as pure devotees of the Lord. Influenced by the Lord's illusory potency, Uddhava had desired the prosperity and victory of these dynasties. But now, by hearing Lord Krishna's instructions, he has again fixed his mind exclusively upon Lord Krishna, and thus he regards his so-called family members without any mundane conception as eternal servants of the Lord. Text 40. Obeisances unto you, O greatest of yogis, please instruct me, who am surrendered unto you, how I may have undeviating attachment to your lotus feet. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Uddhava, take my order and go to my ashram called Badarika. Purify yourself by both touching and also bathing in the holy waters there, which have emanated from my lotus feet. Rid yourself of all sinful reactions with the sight of the sacred Alakananda River. Dress yourself in bark and eat whatever is naturally available in the forest. Thus you should remain content and free from desire, tolerant of all dualities, good-natured, self-controlled, peaceful, and endowed with transcendental knowledge and realization. With fixed attention, meditate constantly upon these instructions I have imparted to you and assimilate their essence. Fix your words and thoughts upon me, and always endeavor to increase your realization of my transcendental qualities. In this way you will cross beyond the destinations of the three modes of nature and finally come back to me. 45. Shukadeva Goswami said, thus addressed by Lord Krishna, whose intelligence destroys all the suffering of material life, Sri Uddhava circumambulated the Lord and then fell down, placing his head upon the Lord's feet. Although Uddhava was free from the influence of all material dualities, his heart was breaking, and at this time of departure, he drenched the Lord's lotus feet with his tears. Greatly fearing separation from him for whom he felt such indestructible affection, Uddhava was distraught, and he could not give up the Lord's company. Finally, feeling great pain, he bowed down to the Lord again and again, placing his slippers of his master upon his head, and departed. Purport. According to the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.4.5, while Uddhava was en route to Badarikashram, he heard about the Lord's journey to Prabhas. Turning back and following Lord Krishna from behind, he saw the Lord alone just after the withdrawal of the Yadu dynasty. After being again mercifully instructed by the personality of Godhead, along with Maitreya, who had just arrived, Uddhava felt his knowledge of the truth reawaken, and then, by the order of the Lord, he went on his way. Text 47. Thereupon, placing the Lord deeply within his heart, the great devotee Uddhava went to Badrikashram. By engaging there in austerities, he attained to the Lord's personal abode, which had been described to him by the only friend of the universe, Lord Krishna himself. Purport. Sri Uddhava returned to Dwaraka in the spiritual sky, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur. Text 48. Thus Lord Krishna, whose lotus feet are served by all great yoga masters, spoke to his devotee this nectarian knowledge, which comprises the entire ocean of spiritual bliss. Anyone within this universe who receives this narration with great faith is assured of liberation. Text 49. I offer my obeisances to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original and greatest of all beings, Lord Sri Krishna. He is the author of the Vedas, and just to destroy his devotees' fear of material existence, like a bee, he has collected this nectarian essence of all knowledge and self-realization. Thus he has awarded to his many devotees this nectar from the ocean of bliss, and by his mercy they have drunk it. Purport. Just as a bee extracts nectar from a flower without harming the flower, Lord Sri Krishna extracts the essence of all Vedic knowledge without disturbing the elaborate system of Vedic advancement. In other words, Lord Sri Krishna establishes himself as the goal of Vedic knowledge without destroying preliminary, inferior processes that may be applicable to grossly materialistic men. Sri Shukadev Goswami thus concludes by offering his obeisances to the spiritual master of the entire universe, Lord Sri Krishna. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-vedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th Canto, 29th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Bhakti-yoga. Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Uddhava, Jai transcendental knowledge of the Lord, the science of Bhakti-yoga, all glories, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. Okay, as much as we hate to move on from this, the Uddhava Gita, we've had a wonderful time associating with Uddhava and Sri Krishna, hearing all the different intricacies of spiritual knowledge. Yes, and it was interesting how Uddhava steadied himself by, you remember? Gratitude. You know, gratitude is the cornerstone of our house of bhakti. And it is so powerful that even when we are feeling ecstasy, if that ecstasy interferes with our service, then we must control our minds, steady ourselves, so that we can do the service that the Lord wants us to do. So that's the process of steadying the mind, to absorb oneself in feelings of gratitude for what the Lord has given us. Okay. Sometimes the gopis would feel great emotional ecstasy, and women tend to tears, so they would want to cry, but they would hold their tears because they knew that it would make the atmosphere inauspicious and it might be displeasing to Krishna, so they would just control their ecstasies in order not to displease Krishna. So that's the height of gratitude. Okay. Moving on to chapter 30, the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty. This chapter discusses the destruction of the Yadu dynasty in connection with the winding up of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After Sri Uddhava left for Badrikashram, Lord Sri Krishna, taking note of many bad omens, advised the Yadavas to abandon Dwarka and go to Prabhas on the bank of the Saraswati to perform swasthayana and other rituals for counteracting bad fortune. They followed his advice and went to Prabhas. There they became absorbed in festivity, and by the illusory power of Lord Krishna, they became intoxicated from drinking liquor. Thus, losing their intelligence, they quarreled among themselves and began killing one another until not a man was left alive. Afterwards, Sri Baladev went to the shore of the ocean, and by the mystic strength of his yoga, gave up his body. Seeing the disappearance of Baladev, Lord Sri Krishna sat down silently upon the ground. Then a hunter named Jara, mistaking the sole of the Lord's left foot for a deer, pierced it with an arrow. The hunter immediately understood his mistake, and falling at the feet of Lord Sri Krishna, begged to be punished. In reply, Lord Krishna told the hunter that what he had done was actually according to his own desire. The Lord then sent the hunter to Vaikuntha. Then Dwaraka, Krishna's charioteer, arrived on the scene and saw Lord Krishna in that condition. He began to lament. Krishna told him that he should go to Dwarka, inform the residents about the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, and advise them all to leave Dwarka for Indraprastha. Dwaraka obediently carried out this order. Text 1. King Parikshit said, after the great devotee Uddhava left for the forest, what did the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the protector of all living beings, do in the city of Dwarka? Purport. Parikshit Maharaj now inquires from Shukadev Goswami about the topic of chapter 1 of this canto, namely the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty and Lord Krishna's return to the spiritual sky. Because Lord Krishna was playing the part of an ordinary member of the Yadu dynasty, he appeared to react to the curse of the Brahmanas by giving up his earthly pastimes. Lord Krishna cannot actually be cursed by anyone. Narada Muni and the other sages who cursed the Yadu dynasty are eternal devotees of Lord Krishna and can hardly curse him. Therefore, in giving up his pastimes and leaving the earth with the Yadu dynasty, Lord Krishna demonstrated his internal potency and personal will, since no one can challenge the supreme potency of the personality of Godhead. Text 2. After his own dynasty met destruction from the curse of the Brahmanas, how could the best of the Yadus give up his body, the dearmost object of all lives? Purport. In relation to this verse, Srila Jiva Goswami explains that the personality of Godhead never gives up his spiritual body, which is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. The word katam therefore indicates how is it possible, meaning it is not actually possible for Lord Krishna to give up his eternal form, which is preyasim sarvanetranam, the most attractive object of pleasure for the eyes and all other senses. Text 3. Once their eyes were fixed upon his transcendental form, women were unable to withdraw them, and once that form had entered the ears of the sages and become fixed in their hearts, it would never depart. What to speak of acquiring fame? The great poets who described the beauty of the Lord's form would have had their words invested with transcendently pleasing attraction. And by seeing that form on Arjuna's chariot, all the warriors on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained the liberation of gaining a spiritual body similar to the Lord's. Purport. Transcendental, liberated personalities, such as the gopis of Vrindavan and Rukmini, the original goddess of fortune, were constantly meditating on the Lord's spiritual body. Great liberated sages, Satam, having heard about Lord Krishna's body, could not take it out of their hearts. The Lord's bodily beauty expanded the love and poetic output of great liberated poets. And simply by seeing Lord Krishna's body, the warriors at Kurukshetra achieved spiritual liberation with an eternal body similar to the Lord's. Therefore, it is impossible to imagine Lord Krishna's eternal form of bliss to be in any way material. Those who imagine that Lord Krishna gave up his eternal form are certainly bewildered by the Lord's illusory energy. Text 4. Shukadev Goswami said, having observed many disturbing signs in the sky, on the earth, and in outer space, Lord Krishna addressed the Yadus assembled in the Sudharma Council Hall as follows. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the inauspicious sign in the sky was the appearance of a halo around the sun. On the earth, there were small earthquakes, and in outer space, there was an unnatural redness on the horizon. These and other similar omens were impossible to counteract because they were personally arranged by Lord Krishna. Text 5. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O leaders of the Yadu dynasty, please note all these terrible omens that have appeared in Dwarka, just like the flags of death. We should not remain here a moment longer. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a great amount of evidence from the Vedic literatures proving that the human-like form of the personality of Godhead and his holy name, abode, paraphernalia, and associates are all eternal, spiritual manifestations without any tinge of material contamination. In this regard, the Acharya has further explained that because the living entities must suffer the reactions to their sinful activities, the Lord arranges for them to be punished during the Kali Yuga. In other words, it is not Lord Krishna's desire that the conditioned souls be sinful and suffer, but since they are already sinful, the Lord creates an appropriate age during which they can experience the bitter fruits of irreligiosity. Since Lord Krishna personally establishes religious principles in his various appearances in this material world, at the end of Dwapara Yuga, religion on the earth was overwhelmingly powerful. All these significant demons had been killed. The great sages, saints, and devotees had been greatly encouraged, enlightened, and fortified, and there was little scope for irreligion. Had Lord Krishna ascended to the spiritual sky in his spiritual body before the eyes of the world, it would have been very difficult for Kali Yuga to flourish. Lord Krishna left the world in exactly that way during his appearance as Ramachandra. And hundreds of thousands of years later, hundreds of millions of pious persons still discuss this wondrous pastime of the Lord. To pave the way for Kali Yuga, however, Lord Krishna left this world in a way that puzzles those who are not his staunch devotees. The eternal form of the Lord, as described throughout Vedic literature, and his eternal form constitutes the highest understanding of the absolute truth, according to all great acharyas, including Shankaracharya and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yet although Lord Krishna's eternal spiritual form is a realized fact for advanced devotees, those who are weak in Krishna consciousness, the inconceivable pastimes and plan of the Lord are sometimes hard to appreciate properly. Text 6. The women, children, and old men should leave this city and go to Shankudara. We shall go to Prabhas Chetra, where the river Saraswati flows towards the west. Purport. The word Vayam here refers to the able-bodied male members of the Yadu dynasty. Text 7. There we should bathe for purification, fast, and fix our minds in meditation. We should then worship the demigods by bathing their images, anointing them with sandalwood pulp, and presenting them various offerings. Text 8. After performing the expiatory rituals with the help of greatly fortunate brahmanas, we will worship those brahmanas by offering them cows, land, gold, clothing, elephants, horses, chariots, and dwelling places. This is indeed the appropriate process for counteracting our imminent adversity, and it is sure to bring about the highest good fortune. Such worship of the demigods, brahmanas, and cows can earn the highest birth for all living entities. 10. Having heard these words from Lord Krishna, the enemy of Madhu, the elders of the Yadu dynasty gave their assent, saying, "So be it." After crossing over the ocean in boats, they proceeded on chariots to Prabhas. Text 11. There, with great devotion, the Yadavas performed the religious ceremonies according to the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, their personal Lord. They also performed various other auspicious rituals. Text 12. Then, their intelligence covered by providence, they liberally indulged in drinking the sweet Maireya beverage, which can completely intoxicate the mind. Purport. The word dishta here indicates the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the first chapter of this canto, The Curse upon the Yadu Dynasty, this incident is elaborately explained. Text 13. The heroes of the Yadu dynasty became intoxicated from their extravagant drinking and began to feel arrogant. When they were thus bewildered by the personal potency of Lord Krishna, a terrible quarrel arose among them. Infuriated, they seized their bows and arrows, swords, ballas, clubs, lances, and spears, and attacked one another on the shore of the ocean. Riding on elephants and chariots with flags flying, and also on donkeys, camels, bulls, buffaloes, mules, and even human beings, the extremely enraged warriors came together and violently attacked one another with arrows, just as elephants in the forest attacked one another with their tusks. 16. Their mutual enmity aroused, Pradyumna fought fiercely against Samba, Akrura against Kuntiboja, Aniruddha against Satyaki, Subhadra against Sangramajit, Sumitra against Surata, and the two Gadas against each other. 17. Others also, such as Nishata, Ulmukha, Sahasrajit, Shachajit, Banu, confronted and killed one another, being blinded by intoxication and thus completely bewildered by Lord Mukunda himself. Text 18. Completely abandoning their natural friendship, the members of the various Yadu clans, the Dasharas, Vrishnis and Andakas, the Bhojas, Satpatas, Madhus, and Arbudas, the Mathuras, Shurasenas, Visarjanas, Kukuras, and Kuntis, all slaughtered one another. 19. Thus bewildered, sons fought with fathers, brothers with brothers, nephews with paternal and maternal uncles, and grandsons with grandfathers, friends fought with friends, and well-wishers with well-wishers. In this way, intimate friends and relatives all killed one another. Text 20. When all their bows had been broken and their arrows and other missiles spent, they seized the tall stalks of cane with their bare hands. Text 21. As soon as they took these cane stalks in their fists, the stalks changed into iron rods as hard as thunderbolts. With these weapons, the warriors began attacking one another again and again, and when Lord Krishna tried to stop them, they attacked him as well. In their confused state, O king, they also mistook Lord Balaram for an enemy. Weapons in hand, they ran toward him with the intention of killing him. O son of the Kurus, Krishna and Balaram then became very angry. Picking up cane stalks, they moved about within the battle and began to kill with these clubs. The violent anger of these warriors, who were overcome by the Brahmana's curse and bewildered by Lord Krishna's illusory potency, now led them to their annihilation, just as a fire that starts in a bamboo grove destroys the entire forest. 25. When all the members of his own dynasty were thus destroyed, Lord Krishna thought to himself that at last the burden of the earth had been removed. Lord Balaram then sat down on the shore of the ocean and fixed himself in meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Merging himself within himself, he gave up this mortal world. Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, having seen the departure of Lord Rama, sat down silently on the ground near a nearby pipala tree. The Lord was exhibiting his brilliantly effulgent four-armed form, the radiance of which, just like a smokeless fire, dissipated the darkness in all directions. His complexion was the color of a dark blue cloud, and his effulgence the color of molten gold, and his all-auspicious form bore the mark of Shrivats. A beautiful smile graced his lotus face, locks of dark blue hair adorned his head, His lotus eyes were very attractive, and his shark-shaped earrings glittered. He wore a pair of silken garments, an ornamental belt, the sacred thread, bracelets, and arm ornaments, along with a helmet, the Kaustubha gem, necklaces, anklets, and other royal emblems. Encircling his body were flower garlands and his personal weapons in their embodied forms as he held high his left foot with his lotus red sole upon his right thigh. Just then a hunter named Jara, who had approached the place, mistook the Lord's foot for a deer's face. Thinking he had found his prey, Jara pierced the foot with his arrow, which he had fastened from the remaining iron fragment of Samba's club. Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the statement that the arrow pierced the Lord's foot expresses the point of view of the hunter, who thought he had struck a deer. In fact, the arrow merely touched the Lord's lotus foot and did not pierce it, since the Lord's limbs are composed of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Otherwise, in the description of the next verse, that the hunter became fearful and fell down with his head upon the Lord's feet, Shukadeva Goswami would have stated that he extracted his arrow from the Lord's foot. Text 34. Then, seeing that four-armed form personality, the hunter became terrified of the offense he had committed, and he fell down, placing his head upon the feet of the enemy of the demons. 35. Jara said, "O Lord Madhusudana, I am a most sinful person. I have committed this act out of ignorance, O purest Lord, O Uttama Shloka. Please forgive this sinner." Text 36. O Lord Vishnu, the learned say that from any man, constant remembrance of you will destroy the darkness of ignorance. O Master, I have wronged you. 37. Therefore, O Lord of Vaikuntha, please kill this sinful hunter of animals immediately, so he may not again commit such offenses against saintly persons. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the fratricidal battle of the Yadu dynasty and the hunter's attack upon Lord Krishna are clearly activities of the Lord's internal potency for the purpose of fulfilling the Lord's pastime desires. According to the evidence, the quarrel among the members of the Yadu dynasty occurred at sunset. Then the Lord sat down on the bank of the Saraswati River. It is stated that a hunter then arrived with the intention of killing a deer, but it is highly unlikely, when more than 560 million warriors had just been killed in a great uproarious battle, and the place had been flooded with blood and strewn with corpses, that a simple hunter would somehow come along there trying to kill a deer. Since deer are by nature fearful and timid, how could any deer possibly be on the scene of such a huge battle? And how could a hunter calmly go about his business in the midst of such carnage? Therefore, the withdrawal of the Yadu dynasty and Lord Krishna's own disappearance from the earth were not material historical events. They were instead a display of the Lord's internal potency for the purpose of winding up his manifest pastimes on earth. 38. Neither Brahma nor his sons, headed by Rudra, nor any of the great sages who are masters of the Vedic mantras can understand the function of your mystic power. Because your illusory potency has covered their sight, they remain ignorant of how your mystic power works. Therefore, what can I, such a low-born person, possibly say? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Jara, Do not fear. Please get up. What has been done is actually my own desire. With my permission, go now to the abode of the pious, the spiritual world. Text 40. So instructed by the Supreme Lord Krishna, who assumes his transcendental body by his own will, the hunter circumambulated the Lord 3 times and bowed down to him. Then the hunter departed in an airplane that had appeared just to carry him to the spiritual sky. Text 41. At that time, Dwaraka was searching for his master, Krishna. As he neared the place where Krishna was sitting, he perceived the aroma of tulsi flowers in the breeze and went in its direction. 42. Upon seeing Lord Krishna resting at the foot of a banyan tree, surrounded by his shining weapons, Dwaraka could not control the affection he felt in his heart. His eyes filled with tears as he rushed down from the chariot and fell at the Lord's feet. 43. Dwaraka said, "Just as on a moonless night people are merged into darkness and cannot find their way, now that I have lost sight of your lotus feet, my Lord, I have lost my vision and am wandering blindly in darkness. I cannot tell my direction, nor can I find any peace." Text 44. Shukadeva Goswami continued, "O foremost of kings, while the chariot driver was still speaking, before his very eyes, the Lord's chariot rose up into the sky, along with its horses and its flag, which was marked with the emblem of Garuda. All the divine weapons of Vishnu rose up and followed the chariot. The Lord Janardhan then spoke to his chariot driver, who was most astonished to see all this. 46. O driver, go to Dwaraka and tell our family members how their loved ones destroyed one another. Also tell them of the disappearance of Lord Sankarshan and of my present condition." Purport. Lord Krishna sent his chariot driverless back to Vaikuntha, along with the horses and weapons, because the chariot driver, Dwaraka, had some final service to do on earth. 47. You and your relatives should not remain in Dwaraka, the capital of the Yadus, because once I have abandoned that city, it will be inundated by the ocean. You should all take your families together with my parents, and under Arjuna's protection, go to Indraprastha. 49. You, Dwaraka, should be firmly situated in devotion to me, remaining fixed in spiritual knowledge and unattached to material considerations. Understanding these pastimes to be a display of my illusory potency, you should remain peaceful. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the word "tu" here emphasizes that Dwaraka is an eternally liberated associate of Lord Krishna, having descended from Vaikuntha. Therefore, even though others might be bewildered by the Lord's pastimes, Dwaraka should remain peaceful and fixed in spiritual knowledge. 50. Thus ordered, Dwaraka circumambulated the Lord and offered obeisances to him again and again. He placed Lord Krishna's lotus feet upon his head, and then, with a sad heart, went back to the city. Thus end the purports of his humble servants of his divine grace, A.C. Bhakti-vedanta, Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th Canto, 30th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Disappearance of the Yadu Dynasty. Hare Jai, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll stop our reading for tonight there, and we'll have a short reflection. The key point to understand in this pastime is that that whole thing that happened didn't happen. It was a projection done by Krishna in order to arrange all the other things that needed to be arranged and for him to go. He made the comment at the end that now the burden of the earth has been removed because he considered that if the Yadu dynasty was allowed to stay in the earth, they would become a burden because they were infallible, they were indestructible, infallible. They could not be defeated by anybody. No one could kill them, no one could harm them. They were there in order to help Krishna remove the burden of the earth. And you might remember that when Krishna came back to Dwarka from Hastinapur, the leaders of the Yadu dynasty were together and they were plotting how to go and declare war on Jarasandha. They wanted to just go and just wipe him and everybody out. That was their nature. That was their nature. They were pure Kshatriya, purebreds, and they were like that. That's what they wanted to do. And then Krishna asked Uddhava, "What do you think?" And then Uddhava made this wonderful plan by which he could support Yudhishthira in his Rajasuya sacrifice, and at the same time kill Jarasandha without war. That was his plan. And Krishna liked it. So that's what happened. But it indicates the nature of the Yadu dynasty. And they were very strong and powerful and very proud Kshatriya warriors. So he said, if I leave them here, if I go and leave them here, what they're going to do, they're going to create havoc on the earth. So he decided to take them back to Dwarka and at the same time create this illusion. And that's what he did. Therefore, you can't understand this pastime just by hearing like a movie, hearing they did this and they did that and they did that. You can't understand it by hearing that. You have to actually understand it by the knowledge that Krishna gave as to Dwaraka. Understand this to be simply a projection of my internal potency. It didn't really happen. So you can stay peaceful and carry out this order. And he to the common eye, it appeared that he left his body, but he didn't leave his body. How could he have left his body? Anyway, that was explained clearly in the text. But he wanted to give, first of all, he wanted the Kali Yuga to proceed. That's one thing. The second thing was that he wanted the atheists, he was throwing them a little bone, here, take this, so that they could say, yes, see, Krishna was not really transcendental, even after all the things that Krishna did, which rules out any possibility of him being anything but transcendental. Okay, what do you got there?
Pranahari.
Hey, Prana must have a treasure trove of reflections on this one.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I liked your point about how gratitude is the cornerstone of the house of bhakti. It seems like most of the mental problems we go through can be mitigated at once by simply recalling the mercy we have received from the devotees and Krishna and genuinely feeling gratitude for it. Thanks for the important reminder, your servant, Prana Haridas.
Well, thanks, Prana. Thank you for your kind words. Arjuna was the personification of that, because he was given the instruction to take the queens that didn't leave. Not all of them were alive, but the ones that stayed alive, they were taken by him up to Indraprastha, and on the way they were attacked by some cowherds who stole the queens. And Arjun started to fight them, and his powers were completely missing. And then he recalled the Bhagavad Gita, and then he was able to rescue the queens. But it turns out that was actually Krishna who kidnapped them.
There's one more.
Yeah.
Vijay Bates.
Hey, Vijay Govinda, Hare Krishna.
And he says, wow, what a powerful reading and follow-up explanation. The mercy of Krishna's devotees. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Vijay Govinda. If we ever get out of this lockdown, we can get together sometime between now and when I leave, if I ever do. Radharaman is making all these schemes. Planning on, buying hive and, setting up a new community of Vaishnavas here. Who knows what's going to happen? And of course, you're always welcome. Okay, I'm going to stop now. It's 8 o'clock. That's an hour, and we have another thing to do tonight before we go to rest. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you again and again. You are all my life and souls, and my life and soul. So please stay safe. Stay happy by remembering these things. If you just remember these things, you will always be transcendentally situated. Nothing will be able to disturb you. And by doing this, we will set the example for the world. So someday after this whole pandemic thing goes away, it won't, the effects of it won't ever go away, but people will come to us and ask us what to do. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night, same place, same station, here at the live studios in Hythe, Kent. Hare Krishna.